So it was a brilliant qualifying from Zhou, and he's on great form actually in the Alfa Romeo, up into Q3, again out-qualifying Valtteri Bottas, and he got himself alongside a Mercedes, George Russell, who didn't have such a great qualifying on Saturday. And this then is the danger zone for the start of the Grand Prix, the first start of the Grand Prix. You've got Mercedes and George Russell, 8th on the grid, Zhou in the Alfa Romeo in 9th, Latifi's Williams, another great qualifying effort in 10th, and then you've got Pierre Gasly in 11th. Lights go out and Russell gets a bad start. Now, Russell starts on the hard tyre. He's done something different because probably the Mercedes qualifying wasn't so good. He's on the hard. Most people are on the mediums, but Latifi is on the soft in the Williams. And you can see straight away he splits Zhou and Russell, goes straight down the middle there. And Gasly on the mediums actually gets a good start as well. Now he's thinking he's going to come through as well. And the gap just closes off and closes off. Gasly then touches Russell. Russell comes across, hits Zhou, and then we get the big crash. Zhou's upside down, and he's heading straight for the barrier then. Nasty, nasty looking accident through the gravel, and then finally just flicks up off that last bit of gravel and actually goes over the top of the tyre wall. So horrible looking accident. What I will say here is that debris fencing in the back does an absolutely incredible job. The strength of that, when the full 800 kilos pretty much of a Formula One car hits the top of the debris fencing, it manages to actually stop it. The fencing holds out, and that's a lot of weight, a lot of force that it's had to take. So that's great from the debris fence. You can see the photographers, they've had a bit of a panic there, understandably. Grandstand in the back, but while Zhou's flipped over the tyre barrier, obviously far from ideal. He's been caught, thankfully, by that debris fencing in the back. But it took a long time to get him out of the car because he's actually stuck in a really, really awkward position, and he's not the right way around either. So dramatic crash, but thankfully, the main thing is from this one that Zhou was okay. It took a long time to get him out, but he went for medical checks and was deemed fit straight away.
So Beato, driver is okay. Just informed the message from race control. So Joe is okay.
Thanks.
So that's great news, and it shows that Formula One safety has come on a really, really long way. But I'm sure there will be some further investigations how to improve it, as there always is from a crash like this. But let's look back at how the crash happened. So again, you've got the four cars. You've got Russell, Zhou, Latifi, and Gasly. They're in this area, and Latifi, once again on his soft tyres, gets an absolute flyer. The same way as Verstappen did out front to take the lead here, Latifi using the soft tyres to come straight through the middle of those two. Now, Gasly tries to follow, and there is a gap here at this time. So it's understandable then for Pierre Gasly to try and get that AlphaTauri in the middle of the Alfa Romeo and the Mercedes. The move is on, but as we're coming through, Russell is actually the driver now that's squeezing across. So Zhou is sticking to his line pretty much on the outside, but Russell's trying to open up the first corner. It's quite a quick first corner. It's a very quick first corner at Silverstone. And if you're coming in from the inside, you're going to be really pinched, and you're going to have to slow down a lot to make it through. You're going to be really vulnerable to attack from the outside, or even in the run into turn 3 as well, which is the first big braking zone. So Russell's trying to open it up, but he actually simply squeezes the gap and closes Pierre Gasly. So Gasly hits Russell, and then they have the contact. And we can see it a little bit more clearly on board with Gasly. So medium tyres, the same as Zhou, Russell on the hards, and there goes Latifi on the softs. Latifi straight through. Gasly thinks, OK, great, the gap's there. I'm going to go for it as well. And he's putting his car in a risky position, to be honest, because he hasn't got the closing speed or the overlap speed of Latifi. So even if he manages to get his car alongside here and Russell gives him the space, they're going to turn up to turn 1, 3 abreast, and it's going to be really, really tight. So Gasly is taking a risk by going for this move, but it is understandable, and I think it is on if he was afforded more space from Russell. But you can see Russell's coming across, and it's that is going to cause this accident. And probably at this point, George needed to be aware that there was an AlphaTauri coming alongside, particularly when he will have known at this point that he's got a bad start. And it's understandable because he's on the hard tyre. He's got to be aware of cars around him, and he isn't aware. Again, maybe this is one of those things where he's got Zhou alongside and he doesn't quite realise that Gasly can't move across. So it is always tricky when there's 3 cars fighting for 2 positions on track. And if you're not aware of both of the cars are there, then you can sometimes think you're putting a squeeze on one, but actually Gasly can't move to his outside because Zhou is there as well. So he's going to hit one car or the other. It's the classic sandwich effect. So maybe that was what George Russell was thinking there if he did see Gasly. But that then is the cause of the crash. And amazingly, Gasly gets away with it and can get back to the pits and actually not lose much more ground because the safety car and then the red flag call was so quick. So then, on board with Russell, you can see the sluggish start. Everyone ahead disappears. Latifi's about to fly through. There he goes in the Williams. And now Russell's just looking in the mirrors because he knows that he's under pressure. And then, bam, it comes pretty quick. And he's just squeezed over, basically. And so I think the blame has to go on George for that one. If he held his line down towards the first corner, then they could have probably all got through. It would have been sketchy because Gasly was being risky. But that's how it goes. George stopped the car. Ran over to check on Zhou, so that's good sportsmanship from George Russell as well, the first instinct that he had. But then he was very frustrated not to get back in the race. You can't do it once you've stopped the car, got out, and you've needed outside support to get back in. So that was the end of George Russell's race, and obviously Zhou out as well. There was another crash. This one is actually pretty separate crash to the first one. Now this one comes from these three here. I say these three, not him. So that's Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. You've got Valtteri Bottas, Alex Albon and Sebastian Vettel all on the inside of the grid. And it all kicks off here from Valtteri basically witnessing the crash and slowing down. He goes to the outside. Now he's doing the similar to George Russell. He's trying to open up the corner a little bit. You've got Daniel Ricciardo on his outside who's going to have a bit of a scare in it in just a second. And so suddenly the crash happens, Valtteri slows up, and then there's a concertina effect behind. And actually Ricciardo's so close there, fully locked up, just trying to avoid the back of Gasly. And they're all piling in behind. And as this crash unfolds, Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda are taken out with it. And if we jump on board with Valtteri, you can sort of see how this happens. So his start is relatively even. That's the trio in front that are going to come to blows. And then Valtteri then immediately sees it coming, goes to the inside to get away from the debris and the fallout from this big crash. He'll then see his teammate upside down as well. And he basically just doesn't get back on the throttle here either. So he slows down and then he's just waiting all the way through this first corner, and now he accelerates away. Problem is, he's in the middle of the pack at the start of a race as well, so it's difficult for those behind who are still thinking this is a race, and your natural instinct is still to move forward. Even when there's a big crash, you're thinking, how can I make places? Whereas Valtteri there was quick to back off and then didn't really go for the gas again. And I think that caught out the drivers behind. First of all, Alex Albon, soft tyres for him, he gets a good start. Now you've got Bottas and Ricciardo ahead. Bottas suddenly slows. The thing for Albon is there's a bit of debris flying all over the place. He's got enough space to slow down, and he gets quite close to Bottas before he gets a whack from behind, and that's Albon then heavily into the wall and almost wipes out Ricciardo, does wipe out Ocon and Tsunoda, who again miraculously get back in the race. This is the one then from Vettel, and this explains quite a lot of why this second impact happened. First of all, you've got Yuki Tsunoda on the left-hand side there. So Tsunoda is putting a squeeze on Ocon. Ocon goes to the grass, and then Tsunoda sees him there, gives him space, but turns towards Vettel. So Vettel's probably very distracted at this point by Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. You've got Alex Albon just on his right-hand side as well. So Vettel's having to steer now to avoid Tsunoda. Now he's looking forward again, and then in a split second, it all happens. Bottas slows, Albon jumps on the brakes, and Vettel cannot react from this distance behind Albon. Would be inhuman. As good as Formula One drivers' reactions are, they cannot react this quickly to a driver hitting the brakes ahead, and that is why Vettel then just hits the back of Albon and pitches Albon straight off and into his own big crash as well, and that's the third retirement from the start of the race out, and the red flag flies, and other drivers get away with their damage. So absolute drama at the start, big crash. Thankfully, everyone is okay. Alex Albon also went for checks in the medical centre and was past fit. So that's the great news. Bad news is a lot of drama, big red flag, and a lengthy delay.
You do not ever want to see accidents like that. Stefano Domenicali in conversation with Joe Guanyu, making sure he's okay.
Well, that was a look then into the big crashes at the start of the Grand Prix. But there was so much action throughout the British Grand Prix. If you want to see more on all those fights at the front, or Max Verstappen holding back Mick Schumacher at the end, check it out on F1 TV.